Today, I want to talk about why you would maybe take the time to create a learning strategy. Creating one certainly is a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort, especially when you start getting into the implementation stage. So, what's the benefit? Why would you bother putting that time in for your organization? So, I have a model I'd like to share with you to kind of paint the picture of what the value is of having a learning strategy. So the model starts with two axes. So the first one is horizontal, and on the one side you have reactive, or on the other side you have strategic. So if you think of maybe a training function or a learning and development team within an organization, it can be reactive or it can be strategic. The other continuum is they can be focused on training, so looking at what people are learning, versus focused on performance. What are employees actually able to do as a result of that learning? So training has a bit more of a narrow focus, and performance has a bit more of a broad, practical, performance-based focus. So those are our continuums. So if we put those together, we come up obviously with four quadrants. So on the bottom left, we have a hamster spinning a wheel. And this is where a training department or a training function is reactive and focused on training. So they're not doing needs assessments. They might have a default or a biased delivery mode. So pre-pandemic, probably it was really easy to do in-person programs. We've had to move to virtual, but also maybe not considering different options that are available even beyond virtual at this point. And there's very little measurement of the outcomes. So, trying to get a sense of what the training impact might be. So it might feel a little bit like this department is a bit of an order taker. So, business calls up and said, we need one of these. And the training department says, yep, okay. And doesn't question, is it really a training need? Might it be a performance need that could be addressed through a non-training solution? So that's the hamster spinning the wheel. In the top left, we have the exhausted mountain climber. So this is where somebody or a training department is focused on, yes, I know I want to be focused on performance. I know that it's important to go beyond just what people learn and look at how their behavior actually changes, but they're still in a reactionary mode. So they're exhausted because they're trying to do great work, but they can't get there. So they might be doing some needs assessments, but they're pretty course specific. They're not broader in focus. They might be using what I call smile sheets or the feedback forms, but they're not being used with a lot of strategy behind it, maybe not looking at all the data and the analysis behind it, maybe not looking beyond kind of that level 1 and 2 evaluation to look at, well, what is the performance change? And also with larger organizations, there might be a pattern of a duplication of effort. So if there's a central learning and development, if they're providing certain courses, but then in the areas of business or different divisions, it feels like there's a gap, they might be trying to fill those gaps on their own. So maybe they'll have some kind of an onboarding program here within the business because centrally it's not really addressing what those needs are. So there's some inefficiencies there, which is creating the exhaustion. In the bottom left, we have the Titanic and the sinking Titanic. So this instance, the Titanic was really, really well built. They put a lot of thought into it. So it was very strategic in terms of the design and cutting edge technology, but it was pretty narrow in the focus because it looked at just the ship and obviously kind of not the surroundings and the icebergs and things like that, considering the larger, broader implications or variables that could come into play. So the training then in that context is, yes, they're being more strategic. And so they're doing a needs assessment, but it's probably narrow recommendations that are only focused on training solutions. So yes, I understand the need, and a training solution is going to be the approach that we take, focused on what people are learning as opposed to that performance piece. Using smile sheets and doing a lot of analysis behind them, but still only looking at the feedback from the course and not looking at what's the behavior change or what are the other variables that are contributing to that performance. And then we get to our last one in the top right-hand corner, and that's a runner in a relay or a baton runner. And that really represents kind of the handing off of a baton from training and development and between the broader organization and the alignment and the synergy that needs to happen in order for that to be a smooth transition. And here the training department or the learning and development team is looking at a broader employee needs. So they're looking at like a performance assessment and a broader needs assessment. They're looking at what are the performance outcomes or the change in behavior that we're looking for. The training department is really aligned and working with what are the organization's goals and objectives, and how can we support that in what we do in our initiatives. And those initiatives are going to be, sure, some training, but it might be formal training, it might be informal training, and it might not be training at all. Maybe it's coaching or secondment opportunities, or maybe somebody to do their job just needs a really good checklist or performance support or something like that to help them do their job. So because you're having a broader look at performance, not just learning, you're able to identify those other possible solutions, which then, of course, lays the groundwork for being able to measure the business impact. So because you're looking at performance outcomes in your objectives right at the beginning and in your assessment, you have something to measure against as well. So you're looking at the training metrics, but also what are the business metrics that we're impacting? Now, we know that training can't solely be responsible for those business metrics, but where can training have an impact? So for example, customer service scores, or employee opinion surveys, or the number of tickets customers call in about products, or things like that. So those are the 4 boxes, and everybody, what I would like to suggest is that everybody wants to move into the top right-hand corner. So how can we have better alignment between what our learning and development function does and the organization, so we can really have smooth handoffs and support each other? I hope that helps.